Hey guys, I got a pretty good video for you right now. This is full of new tech, a lot of questions answered, figuring out how some skills and abilities work that we didn't quite have all the information on, figuring out how to get the min-max best way of using some abilities. I'm pretty proud of this video. I'm happy with finding out what skills do and don't work as they should, figuring out how a lot of ways that honestly will just make your character better. If you don't learn anything new in this video, I'd be surprised. If you do, please leave me a comment or a thumbs up or a sub or whatever you want to do. I'd be appreciated. But if you don't, let me know how much better you are than me, and I will bow down to your superiority. I am very excited for this one. I think you guys are going to enjoy it. Yeah, here we go. Hey guys. Here testing this out. I got this critical damage bonus staff. Already tested to prove that it was higher damage with basically everything. Better than the increased elemental damage, better than the flat damage by a lot. Somebody wanted me to test with attack speed, and it's better than that as well. I was also requested to test with increased weapon damage and crit. I could not find it on the search at all. Requesting this staff here, the 12% increased weapon damage per 5 strength. The other point people want to see is without the gloves, because these gloves are absolutely insane, so we'll put back on the crit damage. We know even when we check out with my bossing rings, the holy crap scaling it scales even harder with the crit damage, and so that tells you the higher the base damage, the better it is. So when we take off these, leave it here with the critical damage first for a nice swap. These are my old gloves. As you can tell, attribute stacker, you want to use the attribute stacking gloves. I get like 350,000 DPS using these, but I still have a respectable 95k. And these are some pretty solid gloves. They work really well with a solid flat damage staff, but they're working for this as well. I'm actually surprised it's as high as it is, but let's see, with the really low base damage, is it even comparable? It's still a 3500 DPS loss, but with the elemental damage, it's a huge loss, so that means flat damage is actually better than the elemental damage at these low points without attribute stacking. With attack speed, it's worse than the flat. So it seems if you have high base damage, elemental damage is better, but it doesn't even come close to crit damage. And the flat damage, if you don't have any huge bonuses, helps a lot. But for the most part, it's easiest just to scale for endgame with crit damage. It works even with the lowest stats. This scales it ridiculously high. But thanks to Az on the Discord, he sent me a link to search for it and made me feel awfully silly because I know how to search for these things. I know how to search for the percent. I know how to search for the lightning damage per int, but I could not figure this one out for some reason. But a lot of you have been thinking it would be higher damage than this critical damage bonus, and so even with the low rings, you're 100% right. And it gets even crazier with the higher damage number. So with my bossing rings, I go from 455,000 to 187,000. Yeah, you guys were 100% right. 32k DPS more for just a simple weapon switch. This was 1 div. They're usually 2, but you can get them for 1. These are 1 div. All of these seem to be 1 div. I have done all the tooltip testing. I've done some map testing with these, and this here is the best. This here's the second best, and then this will be the best for leveling up. But with the fact that you still can't take the gem slots out, it's the runes out, it's a problem. If you could, I'd say slot this in while you're leveling up and laugh all the way through mapping, and then swap it out for the critical damage. But as it stands, Things like the increased elemental damage are really good, but they don't quite keep up to the crits, and the attack speed is just worse than them all. So, thank you again for bringing this to my attention. I'm sorry it took me so long, but this is 100% the way to go for maximizing your DPS at endgame. Fishing for ghosts, have the 80 charges. Where are you, ghosts? There you are. Come on, use your freeze. There it goes, see? Not frozen. Uses the charges right away for the first freeze. Okie dokes. Right now I'm wanting to test right now the time of need jewel here with a little bit fast forward, trying to see how well it does with avoiding getting frozen and chilled in the leg. Seems like it just goes on a cooldown here every 10 something seconds. Well, in my case, 7.21 seconds because of time of need. But it doesn't seem like it prevents anything because it's periodic and not as you're stunned or frozen. So I'm going to find a freezing mob here on the map if I can. Where are these little ghosts? Not here either. When we find them, I hope I'm not killing them all. They usually don't get one shot by this because for whatever reason this is a little bit intangible. Oh, as you can see, frozen. Yeah, it did not do a very good job avoiding freeze. It's not a good enough defensive layer, but I am happy to have tested it. Yeah, time of need, unfortunately not working good enough. If you're wanting to avoid freezes in a certain way, you're going to need to use probably, I guess I have to resurrect to press the item button. You're going to need to use the Thawing charm. That or just stay far enough away that you're not getting hit. Obviously don't do what I did and just face tank everything trying to find a freezing enemy, but as you can see, it's inconsistent. If you get hit between cleanses like that, it's just not going to do good enough. Alright, so I wanted to show how to deal with these freezing guys normally. You don't have time of need. Essentially, just mobility. If you stop still, get stuck like that, you're going to get frozen. If you don't, stay on the move. They will not hit you that often. Sidestep, everything's fine. As long as you're staying mobile, you're pretty much fine, but once you stop, they're gonna get you good. So, one other thing was the Tempest Bell with the Rising Tempest. If Rising Tempest was gonna work with trigger skills, so things like Fireball and Eye of Winter should bring the damage up 24% if this works. So I'm gonna press the button and it does bring up the damage, and then the lightning did not add more on top of it, which is surprising. So potentially, because I have Elemental Invocation counts as lightning, cold, and fire, so if you use lightning, Elemental Invocation, it automatically casts all three. So we just confirmed that Elemental Invocation, since it's lightning, cold, and fire, will boost the damage with Rising Tempest immediately to max because it's lightning, cold, and fire, but will Avatar. So Avatar has a long duration, so as long as this number goes up and then drops down 4 seconds later, but not all the way, then you know it's still stacking really high. So let's check it out. It looks like it's working after 4 seconds. So Avatar also super boosts with Rising Tempest because it gives all 4 elements at once. I am going to try and find some mobs to hit cast on shock and see if it works with Eye of Winter and Fireball, as this is a lightning skill. So I've got Cast on Shock ready to proc, got Ailment and Fireball in the slots. When you do a basic auto attack, it goes up to about 25,700 damage. Let's see if when Cast on Shock procs,
No escape.
30,000. I should probably take off these just to make sure I don't accidentally get something else on here. 27,000. It seems like it did proc initially, but it didn't last 4 seconds, so that can't be right. We're going to have to test this again. Alright, so last test for this, just to confirm if it's working with Gas on Shock. I have taken off Ice Bite and Innervate. I have removed the damage with crit in the past 12 seconds and damage if you've dealt a non-crit recently. I do not believe I have any others. None of these did any of that. None of these did any of that as well. None of these, none further down. We are going to check and see if this goes up to the around 30,000 damage mark when I get this final shock off. So, no, it does not. So the other add-ons were specifically just from getting the kills and whatnot. So that is unfortunate to see. So if you're wanting to use Rising Tempest, especially on the Bell, the best way to go about it is to use it with either Elemental Invocation, because that does work. It is an ability to use yourself that is Cold, Fire, Lightning. So even if you don't have Fireball or Eye of Winter or anything like that, it by itself will trigger the 36% more elemental damage, and on top of that, so will Unbound Avatar. So as it seems that the best meta skill to use for super juicing your Bell with Rising Tempest is Elemental Invocation to keep it consistent. And on that revelation, I am immediately switching out Cast on Shock, and I am putting in Elemental Invocation. I can definitely keep this as without Hand of HOWA in anymore. This seems to be the best way to go. It is a massive damage increase. And obviously Elemental Invocation charges a lot faster as well. So as you can see, big damage number increase, big damage number increase. Need to get my other charge. So we'll wait for it to go all the way down. Elemental Invocation. It's only one, unfortunately, but it doesn't matter. 25,000 accounts as all three. This was a really good damage test. I'm glad we figured it out. See you guys. Alright guys, so I wanted to show this fantastic controlled Metamorphosis deck. Obviously, it's kind of a big deal that with the large ring you can get the, in my case, natural energies. It's also the attack damage plus maim chance, the Falcon technique, and the proficiency node, all from here. However, there is also the medium large ring, which is significantly cheaper, which you can also allocate all those same nodes, and also all these ones here, which is kind of lovely if you wanted to use them for your build. If you're evasion based, this is insane. Same thing with here. If you're evasion based, this is insane. But there's a weird interaction that I don't know where it's coming from. This one here is a wonderful one. I thought I was going to use it for sure, but as you can notice, I'm at 247 strength. When I put in the large, it doesn't have any strength rolled on it, but I go 253. I'm gaining 6 strength with all my plus attributes. I assume I'm getting 5 strength from this, and I don't know why. But I just wanting to let you know, between the mid-large and the large, they will both get you all these nodes. Not obviously all of them, but you'll get the Falcon technique, the proficiency, and the maiming strike, or in my case, natural energies. But know that the large jewel seems like it will give you 5 extra stats, 5 extra to your strength. somebody can explain why, I'd appreciate it. This one is going over my head because according to this, it should not. Anyways, that's all. Thanks, guys. While I'm on the topic of controlled metamorphosis, I wanted to show a little extra bit of tech that can be done with the second one. In this case, medium large is best because Wildstorm is such an amazing node and it's really expensive to anoint. But if you take these 3 points of controlled metamorphosis, you also, with the medium large jewel, could anoint First Approach, Serrated Edges, which is also fantastic. You could get Way of the Wind if you really wanted to, if you're evasion based. You're not going to care about Exposed to the Storm, you're not going to care about this Mana Leech, but it is a little bit of Energy Shield. It's like a minor node of Energy Shield though, so it's not really worth it. And you can also get this reduced mana cost. This here is an extremely nice spot to put a medium large jewel here. You could also put large, but it's not as good. Edit jewel, and when I show you what large does, it misses mental toughness. Instead of getting serrated edges, you get manifold method, and it's not nearly as good. You get flurry, but that doesn't matter. You get exposed to fire, which doesn't matter. Can you? No, you can't even anoint this one with exposed to the cosmos. None of these are nearly as good. I mean, you get some life on kill if you really needed it with the int. That's okay, but mid-large is a massively more efficient node for this one. It's such a beautiful location here. You can get some of the best nodes in the game all from one jewel socket. I want to share that with you. When you want to search for these jewels on the trade site, they could be an absolute nightmare. So usually when you search for them, you have to come here and you have to hit by the small ring. And if you're doing it by a certain size, it's going to show everything on there. So instead you have to go with Divine Orb, maximum 1, minimum 1, just to cycle through. You switch by the size, you scroll down by the very large, then oh look, you find a medium large, but say you're looking for large, you can't seem to find it. There's a better way. Take off the price restrictions because you won't need it. You have to do only fixed passes in a very small ring, which doesn't make sense. But then you do min, max, 6. And that brings up the large ring. And then it'll show all the large rings with your restricted elemental resistances, minus 10%, at from priced cheapest on. And if you do 5 and 5, you'll see it's the medium large ring. And it continues all the way down until it's based by the size restrictions. You have to know what the size is, or else just keep cycling through it. But this is the way to actually find the jewel you need. I hope there's more ways to do it for the other unfortunate to search for jewels, but this one works. Hey guys, I wanted to show, well, a lot of you had questions regarding my controlled metamorphosis and the heroic tragedy jewel. You've had a lot of questions regarding when you get some, you're not getting this natural energies, and you're wondering how to get this jewel with the proper ring size so that you can get the Falcon Technique and Proficiency node, and this node right here. Even if you don't have the Heroic Tragedy, it's pretty good with Maiming Strike. But a lot of people just don't quite know how they all interact with each other, and I'm going to show that off. If you edit the jewel here, you can check and see medium large ring also fits. Medium does not, very large does not, massive obviously will not, but medium large ring does. That is a massive deal because I had hoped to use the same tech with the Max Roll Planner here. However, you can put in the jewel, and as you can see, I have it as a Verana jewel with 3216, just like how in my game it's Verana 3216, and I get the increased maximum energy node. Unfortunately, the max roll planner doesn't seem to be working the best because it seems to think I'm getting 40% chance to ignite. With that said, if this gets fixed, it may be actually worth using and checking your timeless jewels before you purchase them. It could be the difference between just getting this node versus something amazing like this to add on with it. But a lot of people also don't seem to understand how these nodes work. They change based on where it is put it on your tree because each seed is different. So for example here it changed my maiming strike to the energy shield with lightning res. If I move this down here, unfortunately I don't have a keystone to use with it, so it makes it kind of useless for me, but it changes this one to cold damage and 15 dexterity. That would be insane. There's one that's lightning damage and 15 intelligence. That's probably the best one you can find. It kind of hurts seeing this off for the time being because I lose 2000 energy shield, but this is just for testing purposes. You can see how all of these change: attack and stun threshold, and then leech and magnitude of poison, and they change because they are shield nodes. This will even change all these attribute nodes, so instead of being the amazing attribute nodes you want, oh great, those are 2 great stats, but they completely brick my build for what I actually want. If it was in a much better location, I would take this node here and be laughing with 15 dex and 10 to all attributes. It does not change the minors, just the notables. So, of other locations that you could be wanting to slot this in, a good one could be right here, depending on what it chooses to switch this 25 dex and crit damage and accuracy node to. It would be a hard sell for that location, but it is possible. If... oh, sorry, I gotta put this one down. I was wondering why I had the wrong jewel in my hand. There we go. If you didn't need CI, if you're doing an evasion-based build, you could slot it here and check what it does to any of these nodes. A lot of them are kind of in a poor location. They take a lot of points, but they could potentially be worth skilling into. And then this one here seemed to be the best alternative with my first version of the build, where I was also using Handed Chayula for all these curse effects. It would come here, but it would obviously change all these curse effects, so it may or may not be worth it, but it is another valid option. Right now for me, this is the best location that I have, but it could be different for everybody else. I would not recommend putting it up here. Check it out. Unfortunately, the trading or mobilytics and max roll guides do not work the best with the heroic tragedy for testing that out, but that will be something that gets fixed in the future. It's worth keeping an eye on. But for controlled metamorphosis, you do not need a large ring. Medium large works just as fine, and it is much cheaper. Nobody really seems to be giving a crap about medium large. Go get them while you can. Get them before they skyrocket. That's all. Have a good day. Unless you want to do the new tech idea for building charges that a very nice commenter on Snoobae's channel has figured out. You can use Lingering Illusion with Minion Pact on your main skill. So how that one works: you dodge, you leave illusion, you attack, dodge, leave an illusion, attack, dodge, leave an illusion, attack, and it gives you your charges. It's giving me endurance charges right now because I have resonance on, otherwise this would be power charges. But as you can see, it keeps your charges going really well, really fast, really consistently. All you have to do is dodge and attack. It's even better without blink because you can dodge and attack even faster. You don't have the 2 or something second cooldown on blink. For me it is 2.57 second cooldown because I have it level 18 and level 18 with Ingenuity for 30% faster cooldown rate. And it's also quality to 20% for 10% faster cooldown recovery. So that is a very valid option as well. I am not currently using it because I don't feel the need. I had thought of ideas for this tech as well in the future regarding Infernal Legion and minion instability. However, unfortunately, they do not slot into Lingering Illusion. This is where I was thinking this build could go, but it seems only Minion Pact is working. It's a really good idea. It is a big chunk of utility lost if I had to lose any of these damaging nodes for Tempest Flurry, or losing the rage generation, but depending on what you're needing it for, this is insanely good for being able to keep your charges up. All you're losing is Combat Frenzy, which its entire purpose was giving you charges, but you're getting it this way with Lingering Illusion and more consistently, because if you have Minion Pact on, you don't even need enemies around, you just dodge roll, attack. Oh, I didn't click the right button, my bad. Dodge roll, attack, dodge roll, attack, max charges. And depending on your level of Lingering Illusion, because as you get a level, it gives you a chance to grant an additional charge. You might be getting 3 charges with Perfusion half the time. 2 to 3 charges every time. That's crazy. So this is very much so tech worth looking into if you want to check it out. It works really well, but say you take off Blink, you could also take off Combat Frenzy, take off range here. Now every time you dodge roll, you get... Why is... Oh, did I not? No, it's there. Oh, I see. I need the actual... Yeah, I need... Alright, well I have my Discord to thank again for giving me some other great tech. Did not know that you could hold shift on here to see what kind of damage numbers you'd be getting from an increase. So again, I've been getting the question of what's better, Overwhelming Strike or Storm Charged, and I'm pretty sure the answer to that question is Wild Strike or Wild Storm. There's also right here, natural immunity that may be quite nice to have because it may give you some freeze threshold and shock threshold, all that jazz, per dexterity, and you're already an attribute stacker, so this could be worth it if you're just wanting to go pure defensive. But as you can see right here, if I'm going to go Overwhelming Strike, say I add an extra one, it'd give me 451,000 DPS. With this one, it'd only be 437,000, and Wildstorm, 473,000. This is an amazing node. It's just very, very expensive. When I toss on my attribute stacking helmet, it goes even higher, 544,000. This one here is 519,000. It's doing a pretty good job, but it's it's doing a pretty good job here as well, but it's still not keeping up. But I'm losing a huge chunk of energy shield. So depending on what you want to do, that is an option. Also here, when you take off the hands, wisdom here, you might think that might keep it a little bit closer because you're losing a mass amount of lightning damage, and of course, yes, if you don't have monster lightning damage, Wildstorm isn't going to be as good. Whereas the crit damage is still going to scale decently, and even better so than Storm Charged. That is with massive reduced elemental damage, but hey, maybe I can't even test it with taking the weapon off right now, but say, where's my base? I think I got one that's worth like a div or something. Say I take it with the elemental skill one here. If I check it out here, Storm Charge obviously still the best, 445,000. This here is 423,000, and sticking with elemental, 410,000. Fortunately, Storm Charged, while it looks wonderful, just doesn't keep up to crit damage scaling when you're on a critical hit character, and it definitely doesn't compete with the more damage scaling. It is, though, cheap, but so is Overwhelming Strike. So right now, this seems to be the tech to go with. If you can, anoint Wildstorm. Spaghettification is also worth anointing. However, I'm very slowly working towards getting a resonance jewel, the one that allows you to anoint, or not anoint, allot any notables within the range of resonance. I don't know if I'll ever get it. It's crazy expensive and super hard to find. I scrolled through that entire thing and found, I don't know, maybe one or two, and the cheapest one was like 60 divines. It wasn't even worth looking for. It was a horrible pain in the neck. But if you can eventually get spaghettification, it's super worth it. It stacks your damage almost as hard as this guy, Polymathy, which you come all the way down here just to get it. Except for it also gives you, wherever it is, right here, movement speed, which is beautiful. You don't care about the reduced chaos resistance. You don't also care about the increased chaos damage, but I mean, you probably would if you made an Acolyte, a Chayula attribute stacker, which would be wonderful. So I got 3 variants on here. This one is potentially the best for mapping, where it comes down here and uses the first approach node. The main issue this build has is when hitting elemental ailment maps, the ones with higher resistances. It can be a pain in the butt when you can't freeze and explode things. You can still kill everything, it's just a matter of you don't get the big pops for massive clear. I noticed that this here, Killer Instinct, it actually does more damage if you have lower base, and the crit damage does the most damage with the high base damage. I was originally coming down here for Wildstorm, but because it's got 5 nodes that do almost nothing with all these increased lightning damage, only the more lightning damage actually matters, that it just wasn't worthwhile using. But it is super worthwhile anointing if you got it. I'll actually show you the damage differences. So this is with my bossing rings. It is a huge damage difference between the bossing rings versus the regular ones. It's like 150k almost. But when I swap from my crit damage setup here, and I come on with the elemental damage, so it went from 308,000 to 313. This is actually more damage than if you were to have just the Magic Find rings on. But when you get higher damage, remember these were 455,000 before, now they're 449, so it's less damage than the crit when you have super high base numbers. I guess I should probably show with the gloves off and the other ones on, so you can see with the less geared setup here. And on here I got 88,000 DPS with the elemental versus the crit here. 88,000 versus 95,000. The crit damage is just way higher. But the one that is surprisingly decent is this path right here, where you come down and get this big increased attack damage, the attack speed and strength. So as you can see, it's comparable to the crit damage, and also comparable to the crit damage again with the big gloves. When you swap to the rarity, though, it's even more damage. So this is a very solid setup, and the only reason why I don't really see myself ever using this one, maybe getting the nodes for this, and I plan on keeping the crit damage, is because I've already got enough attack speed, but this attack speed is scaling pretty hard for it. The 10 strength is huge. It's an attribute stacker, and every point of attribute gives it a ridiculous amount of stats. The reason why I don't plan on using it is because simply my ice explosions are based on if I can get enough cold damage onto an enemy, and so this DPS is counting in the attack speed. And 7.58 attacks per second versus 7.41 is going to give it a big DPS difference. But I do not need that extra bit of damage. What I need, or the bit of attack speed, what I need is the actual damage. That way it helps me pop my ice explosions easier. So on sheet it might be saying one thing, but overall I believe this to be the right path to take. By the way, I take these 2 crit chance nodes to get me back to 50% crit chance. I keep it this way because I don't want to run the risk of essentially treating every map like an ailment reduced map. I want the big damage to freeze, which will cause the explosions and which will keep me safe, because honestly, a big part of my defensives is the fact that nothing can get near me. When it's a boss, it's no issue. You can dodge around, you can avoid things, and you can burst it down so fast that it's no problem. Like, the only thing you ever have to really avoid is Pinnacle bosses, and even then it's rare. And so, I go this method in an effort to minimize the difficulty in basically all situations. Like, get 92% ailment threshold with the yellow map, much better. So this one here is going to be a really shitty map to do. They do a lot of extra damage, a lot of extra crit chance, and no real positives. Perfect, that's what I'm looking for. Well, oh, it's looking good. It's looking really good. Oh yeah, this is the way. Let's just hope this wasn't a glute. Come on, spawn, guys. I think this is the way. Okay. There's the deli mirror. You proc that. Where are you? Boss, deli boss. Oh, that was easy. Most part, things are blasting and popping. Pretty happy with that. It's still a 92% increase element map, so it's not everything is popping, but most of it is. I'm surprised that more things are popping than for the most part. Even the deli mobs can pop quite often. Not all the time, but pretty often. Being delirious, I guess, is giving them so much resistance. If anybody knows how delirium works, like, very well, I'd love to know, because I don't know the ins and outs of delirium. I just know I like the mechanic, I like the extra mobs, I like just doing it. But I have no idea what 36% delirious means. I've heard it's like 36% less damage, but I was also like 80% delirious in Path of Exile 1, so it doesn't really make sense to just be straight less damage, because then I'd be doing absolutely nothing. But I was still able to clear those maps. That was a decent enough test. It definitely did work a lot better. I noticed a huge increase of how many pops I would get until I hit the mirror, and then it seemed to be a lot less consistent. But it was a fairly large damage increase. I'm happy with that. There we go, I'm out of the fog again. About to fight the sexiest boss in the entire game. Oh, I got 7 splinters, that's a big deal. I usually get much, much less. So, let's just drop this. Oh, this button, my bad. Trying new tech, confusing myself. Forgot I have to hit elemental invocation. There we go. Good tier 15 maps. So yeah, every time you clear tier 15 map, it just explodes with tier 15 maps again. It is the way I sustain maps. I get like 4 to 6 tier 16 maps per boss map. I usually get between 2 to 5 tier 15 maps, and it's why I'm a little bit overcapped on tier 15 maps right now. I do not know what to do with them all, but you know what? We're gonna fast forward it so that we don't even need to worry about it. 50% crit chance. I'll put all this together in a more cohesive video later on. I'm just wanting to gather a lot of information for everybody so that I can do kind of like a one place fits all for every single question I've been getting over the past few days, because there have been a lot of them. I appreciate it all. It's pretty fun. I feel like a pretty girl. Everybody wants to talk to me. Yeah, me. So yeah, this is a normal map. There's another little weird interaction that happens. Resistances. Especially with Electrocute, Neural Overload here. So having Electrocute is a wonderful defensive layer. It's super good for everything, and it even supercharges your Tempest spell by giving it another ailment. But it does have a downside having Electrocute on your bar. So not always, but sometimes, like obviously not always, you can get mobs to be electrocuted, and because they're electrocuted, it means they can't be frozen. And if you get a unlucky series of electrocute chains, Herald of Ice isn't really doing anything because Herald of Thunder can't freeze anything. I'm trying to find them. Now I'm trying to fish for some mobs here to show how Electrocute can sometimes proc and block you from getting cold explosions. It seems to happen more often in Valerian maps. I probably did about a half a dozen maps already, trying to find some mobs for it, but I've made the mistake of making my damage a little too high, and I'm more consistently exploding them now with my cold conversion. But I'm going to try and track something down and show you how. Yeah, you see right there? Perfect. Sometimes the Electrocute goes off, and it makes it so that you cannot get the cold explosions. Next thing to check is some gen alternatives with their weaknesses and strengths. So obviously we got the nice little bossing set up here. Hand to Chayula is an option, Mana Remnant's an option. If using Hands of Chayula, I use Temp Chains and Sniper's Mark as a default. Sniper's Mark for the critical damage bonus, but more for the Frenzy charge that turns into a power charge. Very good option instead of that. Mark. Voltaic Mark does a ton of damage in an area. It is actually surprisingly high. It really helps clear maps. If you're gonna jump from pack to pack to pack, it nukes things. Like, you can check out the Nova. It's pretty high base lightning damage, and it's an attack, so it dales off your stuff, and it's 606%. So if you're wanting to go Hand to Chayula smack, same thing even with Freezing
Mark makes an enemy more
really
vulnerable
big damage,
to
big crit chance, big
dies,
more freezing.
They will explode.
Like, same thing Voltaic Mark. We'll just look at it.
Voltaic Mark will make an enemy more vulnerable to being shocked.
Yeah, show the explosion.
When the marked target dies, a lightning nova erupts from
there
their
you go.
core.
See? It's huge damage when you scale it higher. Like, if I were to pop it on, it would be almost screen wide. There's an issue though, is that Herald of Thunder, Herald of Ice is just a lot nicer and easier to use, because that way I can just go with Tempest Flurry, smack, 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 make Cold Infusion on Herald of Thunder, and you don't need to worry about anything else. And it can do multiple screens wide, so this is just so good. It's so good, but that's not taking away that Freezing Mark and Voltaic Mark are absolutely fantastic, especially when you put it on Hand to Chayula. So you just dash in and boom. It's not really any different than using Shattering Palm, except for it does more damage than Shattering Palm. It just, Shattering Palm puts the ice shards on everybody around it, which then they all shatter and do a ton of damage, but they don't do the debuff. Whereas the Mark, it only applies on the one, so if you pop one enemy with a Shattering Palm and then they all explode, all those other shards are going to explode, which does like a concentrated effective damage, which is absolutely ridiculously insanely strong. It's the bee's knees. This is more for taking down one single target, and it works very well. But if you aren't going to be using Shattering Palm, or if you need Shattering Palm for groups, it's better than Freezing Mark or Voltaic Mark, just for the sake of it's going to cascade the exploding shards. And if you don't need it, then Herald of Thunder, Herald of Ice is better, because they continuously cascade blasting through screens. They do the same thing that Shattering Palm does, but without having to take up a slot on your bar. You just keep slamming, keep attacking, keep going nuts. Other good alternatives. Ones that are very, very good, obviously, so Ice Strike. It's basically one-for-one comparable to Tempest Flurry. I was using Ice Strike for a very long time. I have a 6th link of it. I like it a lot. It's the only reason why I'm not using it is because when I took off the evasion base, instead of avoiding like 85% of hits, I'm getting hit by almost everything. So the dash in usually kills the enemies on the first go, but, well, I'll show you. Sometimes it doesn't. So, Tempest Flurry here. There's also Storm Wave. If I'm using Storm Wave, I'm using Upheaval. As you see, it's actually more damage, and it stays more damage with my bossing rings as well. So this would seem like the better choice, but it does have a very strong downside, and it's that it teleports you to the enemy. So when you're doing things like dropping the ball, you can't quite position yourself between the bell and the enemy as well to hit both. And also, you can get yourself into a little bit of trouble because you can't really kite or do anything. That's why I think Tempest Flurry is very, very nice. It allows you the option of the best of both worlds between Ice Strike and Storm Wave. You'll see that Ice Strike holds up pretty dang well. I should probably put it on my bar though. Come on, first enemy. There you are. So like, clearly doing more than enough damage, and you know what? It also jumps from pack to pack, which is highly satisfying. So it's possibly a little faster than Lightning Strike, but it's less safe as well. Potentially more damage, potentially faster. If you have enough damage so you don't need to worry about anything, that's great. But if you have a mob that's like periodic invulnerability, it can make you cry. I don't put concentrated effect on Storm Wave because it makes it feel absolutely terrible. But I keep all the rest on. It looks like the damage is way less because it doesn't really know how to read Upheaval. It's actually pretty decent because, well, when you do the wave, it's 3 of them, and you can hit all 3 at the same time. It's pretty great. What? Rubber banding me. Anyways. New map, new showcase. So as you can see, Storm Wave, absolutely godly for map clear, but it's got one massive downside that I really do not like. See how Tempest Bell isn't gaining any charges? Because it's not a strike skill. If it gained charges, I'd be happy with it, but it doesn't. So no bueno for me, a guy who doesn't want to swap skills anymore. Like, I never wanted to swap my main ability. I only wanted to swap the subsidiary things, like the Heralds and the Grim Feast, that sort of thing. Because those, it's not a button you're clicking. So when I'm playing the game, I want, when I press left click, I feel like I'm pressing left click the same every time. I don't want it to change. So that's the reason why I was super hesitant towards changing towards Tempest Flurry at the start. But then I tried doing Storm Wave, and I was like, oh my, I'm so much more survivable on Storm Wave versus Ice Strike. Didn't want to do Tempest Flurry because it cost too much mana, but then I forgot that I solved the mana issues. And yeah, once I figured that out, Tempest Flurry all the way, just because, hey, it's safe. It's so safe, which makes it consistent, and it's extremely strong. Pretty sure the tooltip DPS is actually showing less than what it's actually doing because of the extra strikes and how it's hitting the bell. Oh god. I'm certain it's doing more than the ice strike, but there's no way for me to confirm it really without like a testing dummy that would tell me how much damage everything's taking. But alas, we'll just have to go off of what Eyeball Estimate says, and Eyeball Estimate is saying Tempest Flurry is stronger. Basically a one-for-one swap, except for I put Upheaval in for the sake of just hitting bigger. You don't really need it with the explosions, but it's nice to hit more things to get more potential procs off. It also has some really big one-hit damage, more so than Tempest Flurry or Ice Strike. And because of that, it helps freeze on that one big hit a lot easier than it does for the little ones. Especially when you have the issue of, accidentally electrocuting the enemy before you freeze it to cause the explosions. Again, don't take off the Electrocute from the bar because it supercharges the bell, and it's a nice defensive layer for when you can't get the freezes off. Yeah, the bad habit I picked up from having too strong a build is looting when you shouldn't, because there is no reason why. By the way, you can hit way over big walls like that with charge staff to do the explosions. It's a pretty good tech. You can do that with anything. You don't need Storm Wave. You can do that with Tempest Flurry. Honestly, charge staff is probably one of the best skills in the game just because of that alone. Kind of like a pseudo mobility for clearing. Gets rid of all these horrible downsides of having incredibly blocked off maps. I guess I don't really have anything. So as you can see, potentially Frost Strike is faster than... Oh, that's the wrong one. Potentially Frost Strike is faster than Tempest Flurry because it jumps around. Storm Wave is definitely faster than Tempest Flurry and Frost Strike both, and safer than both, because I keep grabbing this one, because of the added range and the fact that nothing's going to really mess with you. So again, Ice Strike is a little bit faster potentially. It uses a lot less mana than Tempest Flurry. It jumps from pack to pack, so it's kind of like a mini Flicker Strike. It can be very, very, very satisfying when you zip, 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 zip all the way up a long line of enemies. But to be honest, you're going to be doing the Herald of Thunder Ice explosion so much that it doesn't happen as much anymore now that I discovered that tech, so it kind of took away a lot of the satisfaction from it. But if you take out the Herald of Thunder and just use Herald of Ice, it procs a lot more often, but it's still... Honestly, you'd probably have to keep Herald of Thunder and drop Herald of Ice, because even though it's Frost Strike, it only converts to the physical damage, not the lightning, so you'd have to be using a Fizz Staff for it to work as well. On top of that then, Storm Wave, while Storm Wave here was a wonderful skill that cleared and cleared and cleared and is super safe, it's not good against bosses, and it does not proc the bell, or does not charge the bell, I should say. It definitely will proc it if you're able to drop it, but you're not going to have an extra slot just for Storm Wave to do less damage than Tempest Flurry, and it's a lot less damage. With that said though, it's still pretty decent of a skill. If you're just blasting maps, it can't be beat. It'll nuke pretty much everything around, but you can nuke everything around with Tempest Flurry. I find this to be the best skill. There are other alternatives though. So, charges. We're gonna go back to this Lingering Illusion tech. We're gonna drop Combat Frenzy, put in Perfusion. We're gonna take out Rage and put in Minion Pact. And we're gonna test this out. And we're gonna drop the bell. Which sounds wrong. It sounds like a dirty word. It's definitely not something I was intent on doing. But you know what? I want to show something off. So, gems, Flicker Strike. It's only level 17, surprising. And Slam. There we go, Falling Thunder. These are surprisingly good. I didn't expect them to be as good as they were, but yeah, they hold up. Vaulting Impact, don't do. It's terrible. So, let's put it this way. Falling Thunder, even without power charges, it's fast enough. Here's Vaulting Impact. It's... yeah. In the time that you can do like 2 Vaulting Impacts, you can do like 4 or 5 Falling Thunders. Or multiple rotations of Tempest Flurry. It's just, it's so slow. The +1 second total attack time is terrible. It's not going to be reduced by anything, and because of the +1 second to attack time, like here, 0.81 attacks per second, because I got such crazy attack speed, it feels even worse without it all. It does not hold up. It would be super pretty. I honestly was thinking about using this. I tried it while leveling up, and it got me killed with the giant staying in the air hang time way more often than it was worth, so I just dropped it. You're gonna generate your power charges.
I cannot.
There we go. And then you slam. Even if you don't have it, you can still use it. It's not very good, but it's just so much better with said power charges. Obviously I'm not at all power charge built right now, but even still, it works really well. All you gotta do is dash, attack. As you can see what I said, it feels a little clunky versus just doing that, but you generate your power charges, and then you slam. Whenever you hit a boundary like that, it's unfortunately going to blow up on the wall unless you have chaining, but I do not have chaining on here, so... When you use this though, if you come down here with one with the storm, it's like a night and day difference. It's just, I don't really want to use the Lingering Illusion tech, and if I'm going to be using the Charge Infusion, I like it better with just dropping the bell with potential. Like, where are you? Potential. What a beautiful skill for the bell. Makes it crit that much more. I really, really like potential. Okay, so now we do Flicker Strike. Basically the same thing. Put some rage on it. This one here, we can do close combat. Let's put Rage Forge on just for SNGs again. But here, this one here is going to feel a lot better if I can remember to put Flicker Strike on the bar. There we go. Ghost guys. So remember, like I said, just keep being mobile. You won't even need to use your charges. But yeah. See? It works pretty dang well if you have it on a mobility skill like this. But a lot of the time with this much damage when you're doing the giant ice explosions, they don't even have time to continue. They just pop, and then you go to the bank, because what else are you gonna do? So yeah, the tech that Snoobae uses, yeah, sorry, this is one thing that's kind of annoying. If you have an attack without moving on your left click one, you can't click on the stairs and move, it'll stop you from moving. Kind of unfortunate. Okay, so if this is to be believed, when I go to... Okay. I've prepped a big chunk of energy shield. I got a whole group of mobs on here ready to jump me. Let's see how stun resistant I am now. Just stand still for a bit. Don't let them surround you, just... Yeah, I haven't been stunned a single time yet. There we go. You want the tech? Get over 7,000 energy shield and get at least 24% energy shield as stun threshold. That is the way to do it. Saves you pathing up here getting these skill points. Just get these jewels. I didn't like them at first. Now I really like them. They finally paid off with swapping out the helmet. That's the way to do it. Hey guys, I'm here to put out a little bit of a PSA because right now these flame traps in Sekimas, they will wreck you at 1 life. I don't know why this guy is messaging for a ring that's not for sale, but whatever. Anyways, they will message you when you're going CI, because when you go CI, it basically brings your stun threshold to what is basically 0. I've got these jewels that give me additional energy shield as stun threshold for 24%. I've showed them off before. They have admittedly done quite a bit for helping with this. As you can tell by my honor loss, I have walked through this a few times to make sure that I wasn't talking on my butt. But as you can see, I can take a hit now, but that is not going to hold up continuously, because one of these can stun me, and if it stuns me, it very, very much so can one-shot me. So, probably the next hit is going to do it, so I'm going to let my energy shield go up a bit. Come on, come on.
Fury unleashed!
So that to pull myself up. There it goes. As you can tell, when it hits you, it's very scary, very bad. I've had this completely one-shot me when I wasn't expecting it. That is why I decided to come back here to show it off, show how scary it can be. I don't know what the stun threshold on this is completely, so let us check a little test here. This one here is my 10%, so now I am only at 16%. See if it stuns me on the first hit. Nope. I guess I just got super unlucky the first time I did it, but we're going to continue this test. Right now I am down a little bit of energy shield. I'm only down to 8% energy shield at stun threshold with 6,000 energy shield. See how bad that gets. Surprising. Well, it's showing that these stun threshold jewels are doing some serious work. If I take this off, is it going to instantly stun me every time? This is very much so worth knowing. Don't come into Sekimas without it. That's bad. So on the second hit there, we're gonna fill up and see if it does it again in 2 hits with basically 0 stun threshold. I don't know if I have any on my other gear. I wasn't really paying that close attention, but let's see. Ooh, first hit. Yeah, that's not good. So yeah, if you're coming into Sekimas with CI, make sure to get some stun threshold jewels, or else you will very much so very easily die if you accidentally mess up the pop over one of these flame traps, which I did, which is why I came back here to show you this interaction. Anyways, that's all. Talk to you guys later. Hey guys, I just want to do a quick little showcase here. A lot of people have been asking me, can you do this without the Pillar of the Cage God staff? While you can see my damage is insanely high, I could do a flat one out here, gaining quite a bit from this crit damage, but if I were to go straight up, this is a terrible weapon, absolutely terrible. But it's not Pillar of the Cage God. I actually sold the weapons that I had before this, so I cannot just one for one grab my stuff. But if I were to come here, I nuke my damage, but it's still quite respectably high. It's still a good 94,000. And what's the most important here, Herald of Thunder still has that good base of right around 400 cold damage minimum. Big deal. That's what you need for getting the freezes off initially, and I should be able to still make this work. So this is a level 80 map, a tier 15 with a +1 corruption onto it. Let's check out what it's like. So first thing you'll see, Pillar of Cage God staff.
Energize.
Yeah, that's bad attack speed. This weapon here, massively slower, but still doing decent damage. But the AoE scaling from the staff is quite a bit worse. Now, if I had a proper damage staff, it might be a little bit better than this. But as you can see, it still has some pretty good tech with it, with the double heralds. As long as you got enough cold damage to freeze and enough lightning damage to shock, you'll still do a decent enough job. It's definitely a lot slower. Not quite there, but you know, get a better base staff here, you'll do pretty good. This here is showing with the worst of the worst that I could do. Coming up here, here's the boss.
Is there no limit to corruption's influence?
Keep the charge staff going. Drop the bill. As you can see, the damage is still decent, but it's not quite one popping yet. So that is basically the one for one what a very terrible fizz damage with elemental conversion will be giving you compared to the Pillar of the Cage God. But I'm pretty sure that showed you that even without the staff, all the scaling, pretty dang strong. But now, how about all of this without the gloves? The gloves are what's giving you the crazy damage. I'm gonna go back to town, grab my old gloves, put them in, show you what the rest of this map looks like. So these are some pretty solid gloves as they are. They are definitely rocking a few dead stats like chaos damage and max life for a CI build, but still a pretty decent amount, 90k. Not bad at all. And these are the two items that scale your damage the most, so if it can make it work with this, I'm pretty sure you'll be fine. So obviously you get your AoE back, got your attack speed back. Your damage is a lot less. I'm surprised it's doing as well as it is, because as you can see, main hit cold damage is kind of abysmal, but at least with the Herald of Thunder, right around close to that 300 mark, but it's low, quite low, so it's going to make these cold explosions highly inconsistent. It's not like I have just a super easy map. I got +1 level in their base. I mean, it's an MF map. It's not anything special. It's just a random yellow tier 15 map I had, but it's not as bad as you'd think even without the gloves. So like, attribute stacking is definitely a way to scale your DPS very well. Dropping them both, I don't even know what'll happen here. Let's see here. 125,000. Put in the worst staff ever, my old gloves. I got 44k now. I do not think this will be enough to proc, but hey, we got enough. It's pretty dang slow for everything. It's pretty bad. That's all I'll say. Pretty bad. Even without, yeah. You'd have to rely on some bell tech for being able to survive this. Don't attribute stack without attribute stacking gear is the moral of the story, I guess. Alrighty, that should be everything for this map. I think I'm back to Mortimer pretty soon. I thought I saw him, but oh, right. I left. Anyways, that's all I gotta say about that. It seems you can make it work with one or the other. The one that is the most willing to be swapped out is the belt. It only gives you about 50k DPS, which is a lot, but when you're over 300 with Magic Find, it can leave a lot to be desired. With my bossing gear, for example, 455,000, it is a 125k, well, 130k DPS drop with this. So obviously, the better your rings, the better the belt will be. So don't sleep on the belt because it allows you to max your attributes, or sorry, your resistances, and stack things like Magic Find for your actual Magic Finding set, and to boost your damage to the moon. Just showing that all of these pieces are replaceable. You're just gonna have to work around it, but they work best together. I'm hoping you're enjoying all that. I wanted to go over one final thing, and that's keeping your mana up against bosses and the like. So after this, I'm going to be releasing another video with a whole bunch of boss compilations with the tech that I've done in this video put towards it. I'll kind of put in there piecemeal, a whole bunch of Breach Lords, even an Expedition boss, and I think you're going to enjoy it. But for this, I know I've gone over it a lot, but some people still seem to ask, how am I keeping it up? It's with mana remnants, and sometimes a little bit of clarity. You swap out Grim Feast because it does absolutely nothing against a boss. You just put in mana remnants, turn off Herald Device, and you're good to go. And you don't even really need clarity, it's just an extra layer of something that's good and that works, and I have no complaints with doing that.
There's a chill in the air.
I even lose mana when going against bosses because, as you can see from my mapping rings, I have huge max mana on both of them, but my bossing rings, I don't have it on either. So in theory, my bossing should be even less smooth, but I have no real issue. The other thing is, as I've gone over in the video, don't use cast on shock. It nukes your mana, and it completely is uncontrollable. So when you have it as a cast, you can choose when to use it, and it doesn't use too much now. It's only when you really spam it. And then you put Inspiration and a lower level Eye of Winter on it. Lower level Eye of Winter means lower mana costs. And so the level of the Elemental Invocation doesn't really matter. You just pump this so you get more energy gain so you can spam it whenever you want. But it's not a big deal. Even putting in more maximum energy, not too big of a deal. Like this here isn't really worth putting in quality because you just don't need it. You're already popping the bell, and the bell is pretty much the biggest mana cost thing because you're just dropping it on cooldown, and sometimes you forget. But I know a lot of people were also thinking you could put Inspiration on Tempest Flurry, but there's no real point. It's a 51 mana cost skill. Yeah, it drains it a little bit, but when you have your mana remnants on, you're gaining it mostly faster than you're losing it. You could use a lower level Tempest Flurry, which is a very valid option. However, I'll just show you the damage drop off, and this is without the support gems. So no support gems, base 121,000. If I put in a level 5 one, drops down to 57,000. I get less than half damage, but granted, I do have essentially unlimited mana now. I should put in Martial Tempo properly show off. I'll even add the... I don't think any of these add any extra mana cost. Oh, there we go, Primal Armament. There we go. So this here's 1-to-1. And you see my mana doesn't go down when using it. But the problem is I don't want to lose half my DPS. So I stick with the higher level one. And it's not an issue for me. It holds up. It does more damage against the boss, which is what I care about. It doesn't really matter as much in mapping because most of the stuff is dying with Herald of Thunder, Herald of Ice. But in those ailment resistant maps, that isn't working the best. And so you're relying on Tempest Flurry, and it feels very good to have everything actually working together. So this is why I stick with the very high level Tempest Flurry. I know I can get it to 20, but it's not worth it for me. The damage would be probably about another 15,000-20,000. But it's just, this is fine. So yeah, if you're wanting to save mana, a lot of ways that people are talking about is like lowering your gem level. I don't think it's worth it. People are saying to use some unique rings and the like. I don't think it's worth it, because why would you want to lose a ring slot? Other things are like, well, obviously on mapping, there's the mana on kill that you just get from a jewel. Not this one. Not this one. Not that one either. There it is. Recover 2% mana on kill. That will keep you topped up on mana the entire time when you're mapping. You don't need to worry about much. The only time you need to worry about it is on bossing. You could spec into some points like this. This is on my weapon swap too, so I'm not even using it. You could take things like mental toughness. You could come up here and get deep trance. But honestly, I just don't think it's necessary. And you'll see in my video coming up pretty soon why I think that way. But also don't sleep on your mana potion. If you really are just struggling that little bit, this will get you there. There's probably better ones than this one. Probably ones that have a drawback that CI doesn't care about. But as it stands, this mana potion gives me huge mana recovery, and I can use it 10 times in a fight. I was needing this when I was first leveling up through Pinnacle content, but now that I have mana remnants and I can sustain mana without much of an issue, like if there's anything to hit, this barely goes down at all. So those are the options I have for you for keeping mana going. Again, rapid fire. Slot on mana remnants. Take off Grim Feast for your bosses. Put on mana remnants with some clarity if you can. If you need to, use a lower level Tempest Flurry. Use your mana potion. And if you're really desperate, there's a lot of spots on the tree that can get you some reduced mana cost. Alrighty, that's all. See you soon. Have a good day.